Thanks, Tony. Appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you. I love you guys. Thank you for standing and staying in the fight. A lot of you have been in this for a long time, and I just appreciate people that are willing to stand and be in the fight. And so thank you for doing that. And Tony, thank you for standing and being in the fight for many years as well. God bless you, friend. Let's give Tony a round of applause. He's just been a good warrior for a long time. And I also want to thank you as I'm getting started for starting out in praise and worship. That's not kind of normal for a event where you're talking about pray, vote, stand. It seems like most of the time we kind of skip over the front word and we just talk about vote and stand. We don't talk about the front end of it, but that's the soul of it. That's the heart of it. It was when I was a young boy on the farm at age 13 and going back to feed the sows that I accepted Jesus. Wasn't a very romantic situation, but it was effective. But that changed the whole trajectory of everything. And then that was even intensified more in 1995 when I got cancer, and I had to decide, is my faith real or not? Because if this cancer's gotten ahead of me, and I'm going to the other side, am I holding on to something that I can hold on to? Is this real? Is God real? And I had to really decide then, and it wasn't any sort of kind of intellectual argument at that point in time. I'm grasping for something that's real. And he is. And he's there. And he'll never leave you or forsake you. And I've been in dire situations where that very thought has entered my mind, where I'm kind of wondering, what's this going to happen here? And that thought, he will never leave you or forsake you. And you're going to hear from Andrew Brunson, who I stood next to his wife at one of his trials in Turkey. And he's up there and in a Turkish prison, and she's standing there praying for him. And they knew that God, he would never leave them or forsake them, as much as the trial may come. So thanks for starting, for the real root of this thing. The real strength of this is that faith. And we've got to bring it to action. We've got to bring it to life. So I want to go into something, and I'm going to try to hit this pretty hard and fast and blunt with you as well. You have a constitutional right. It's a constitutional right called free exercise. It's 16 words. It's the first 16 words of the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, first 16 words. This is the magic sauce that made America, these 16 words, okay? Now, you may think, oh, wait, magic sauce that makes America? I've not heard that phrase before, but I want to build this for you, and then I want to talk to you about why it's under assault. First 16 words, the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Now, up until this Supreme Court, we've had 50 years of the Establishment Clause. Well, that's Establishment Clause. It's violating the Establishment Clause. We have no right there. And we've had the last couple of years of the court saying, oh, wait a minute, you've got a free exercise clause too in here. Now, why is this a secret sauce? 13 colonies come to the United States. They're mostly out of Europe, out of Great Britain for the most part. They come here to the United States. There's religious wars going on in Europe at that period of time, right? People, if you were on the wrong religion, you got thrown in jail. The Pilgrims come over here because the British couldn't take, their faith. They ran them out because they had the Church of England there, said you can't go there. They went to Holland, and in Holland they couldn't go, and they finally said, okay, we're going to the New World. And we're going to establish there, and we're going to go there. Why? We want a bunch of land. That's why we want to go there, right? No. They went there because they said, look, we want to be able to practice our faith freely, the way we see it. And we're going to take this arduous journey. And we don't know how many of us are going to live through this. But our faith is so central to us that we're willing to do this. And they did it. And others came. And others of other faith came. The Quakers came into Pennsylvania. The Baptists came into Georgia. The Catholics came into Maryland. And then they got to form a country. And the country starts to stand up and they go, wait a minute, what's our faith going to be? Yeah, well, that's what we were fighting about. Okay, we won't establish a Church of America, all right? But you will have a free exercise to practice your faith as you see fit. And that was the secret sauce that allowed the country to come together and has allowed the most diverse nation on the face of the earth to stay together, was that free exercise. Yet now that is what is under attack, is that free exercise. And you have the right to free exercise to hold to a belief even if the government disagrees with that belief, right? Government can't force you to believe a certain way, even though most governments around the world seek to really try to control religion. They don't like religion because it's the one institution and entity that actually can stand up to government, that can actually push back, that has enough support with it, the people's hearts are enough with it, that they can push back on a government. And that's why governments don't like them. And the governments the world around try to limit it, particularly communist governments try to really limit the free exercise of religion. Look at China today, and you're seeing the future of what oppression looks like. China's at war with faith. They saw what happened to the Soviet Union. They saw it fall. They saw what happened in Poland when the Pope goes there and says, "Be not afraid." And the place, I tell you who was afraid when Pope John Paul says in Poland, "Be not afraid," it was the Polish government. It was the Polish communist government who was afraid because now the people rose up and they throw it off. The communist governments don't like this at all. They're opposed to it completely, to religion. They're atheistic in their orientation anyway. But on top of that, the communist governments believe that government is the highest power and the highest authority and the highest ability that man can reach is this sort of perfected government. Well, if the Chinese Communist Party is the highest achievement of mankind, we're doomed. We're doomed. That isn't the highest achievement. Now, increasingly, we're finding this under attack here at home. And let me go into these just quickly and what we can do. The educational system in the United States has become more of an indoctrination system than it is an education system. It's about indoctrinating. And people saw that during the COVID era, that they could see what was being taught. The public, unfortunately, now is more willing to limit religious freedom now than they have been historically. A recent poll out this week showed that 40% of Americans were willing to have the government side with the majority view over a religious minority's rights. 40% of the American public supporting that line. I talked to Justice Alito one time, this is a couple years ago, and I asked him, I said, "Are we going to have religious freedom in America?" And Justice Alito has been fantastic on this topic. And I was asking him, I said, well, you're going to have it in law. The court is going to stand up for a definition of religious freedom and free exercise. I don't know if you're going to be able to maintain it in your culture and in your daily life, though. And I think he's got the right distinction there. The court has been standing for this free exercise clause and been declaring it. Coach Kennedy was allowed to pray on the sideline of the football game, his free exercise. Great victory. Yeah, that one deserves a round of applause. Along with, I might say, the Dobbs case, this is one of the great decisions in the history of the court that is going to save lives. That decision will save millions of lives here and around the world. But now, we've got to fight for it, I think, in the political marketplace and in the public marketplace. We've got to fight for our religious freedom. And remember, the United States, we've dealt with these questions for years. In my home state, we've got a number of Amish people, and a number of the different Amish groups don't believe in having their kids go to school past the age of 16. Well, the state law required 18. And you're saying, well, wait a minute, what are we going to do here? You got to go to 18. They're going, well, within our faith community, we believe that you should learn hands-on skills, and we don't want to teach past, we don't want them to go to school past the age of 16. This is a deeply held belief. And so what we found was a way to accommodate. We said, okay, you got to get a GED, but you won't have to go to school past the age of 16. And the Amish communities are wonderful communities. They're wonderful people. I want my kids to go and get PhDs, but they want their child to not be educated past 16. That's their choice. And we found a way to accommodate, and we've got to continue to do that. Now, and I want to make a very clear, blunt statement and then talk about what we can do to address this. We are now seeing in the United States the threats that if you want to have a traditional set of values, nothing spectacular here, but you just want to claim that life is sacred. From the very beginning to the very end, it's sacred. That marriage is a sacrament. It's a union between a man and a woman, that God made them male and female. Just basics. Let's say those three. You just want to claim those three. That you're going to have to increasingly stand on your free exercise clause to claim those in the public square. That people are pushing back, that organizations are threatening, that professional organizations are limiting people, that the educational system is pushing against those systems. And we need to be able to stand up and say, in the public square, in the public marketplace, I believe this, and this is my right to believe this. I'm being peaceful about it. I am not threatening anybody about it. I'm just saying, this is my deeply held conviction. And we need to be able to stand there and to say that. And we're going to have to be able to do that under the free exercise clause as these get chiseled away more and more. Let me give you some examples of it. We formed this National Committee for Religious Freedom. It's a 501c4. We're going to form up state chapters around the country for people to fight in Georgia and in New York and Illinois and Kansas and Virginia to stand up for the free exercise clause. We formed this National Committee for Religious Freedom. We announced it in February. We opened a bank account at Chase Bank. In 30 days, we were contacted by Chase Bank and said, we're ending your relationship with us and we will not be your bank. We will not tell you why we did this. This decision was made at the corporate level, and we're discontinuing you. And we're going, why? What did we do? We have money in the bank account, and we were fired by our bank as their customer. Why? What did we do? Well, we won't tell you. The decision was made at corporate level, and then after pushing them for a while, they said, well, if you will disclose who you're going to back and what your criteria are for candidates you're back, then we will consider reestablishing your account. And we said, okay, that's what's happening in America today. And out of that, we launched, we became one of our own first customers, the Chased Away campaign. And we said, okay, if you have had that experience happen to you, because I found out as I went around talking with people, I found this has happened to a number of people where they've been fired by who was providing them services, and often not told a reason, but it was often people in the faith community that were fired. And what's with that? Why? I have a right to be able to be in this country and to live and to exercise this right and to participate in the public square. I'm not threatening anybody. I am standing on basic values that have been around for thousands of years, and I get terminated by this group or that. So we're asking for people, send us in your cases. And we're going to start putting those, trying to get those in front of others or getting them in front of attorney generals to see if we can get some of these cases prosecuted. And move forward to show people that you have a right to stand for this. We also have a pledge. We've got a pledge for religious freedom, and you can go on our website, thencrf.org, and we're asking candidates and members of Congress to take this pledge that says, I will stand for religious freedom. We've got to start getting people in the public office that support religious freedom and the free exercise. The court system has been ruling in favor of us in a number of cases, but we've got to start getting public officials. We need to get school board members. What would happen in Georgia if you elected one school board member in every school district that would stand up and start asking questions about what's being taught? That would put a motion in front of the school board that we stand for religious freedom here. Would the other school board members vote against that? We've got to start getting people activated. So we're asking people to take the pledge. And if somebody won't take the pledge, to highlight that in the race that one stands for religious freedom and another does not. So what else can you do? Number one, you always start here in my book, pray. We got to pray, folks, for this free exercise clause. We take it for granted, but this country has had this religious freedom from its very outset, and we are the global standard for religious freedom. Any ground we lose here will be lost all over the world. We've got to fight for it here. Pray for it. Second, form state organizations. Georgians for religious freedom, Kentuckians for religious freedom, Oklahomans for religious freedom. Get organized in your state and bring in all the various faith communities. Get candidates to take the religious freedom pledge. When they're out this fall campaigning, ask a candidate, do you support religious freedom and the free exercise clause? Just ask them, put them point blank in front of people and say it's in the Constitution, do you support that? Make it an issue in local, state, and national races. And then get in and back candidates that do back religious freedom. And finally, don't give up. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you there are many times that I've looked at some of these fights and you just kind of think, it's just time to go try to find an island or go back to the farm in Kansas and quit. You know, you just kind of go, I just about had it. We can't. We've got to get and we've got to stay in this fight, and you're the core of the fight. You're the special forces, folks. You're the Marines to get and to stay in this fight. And remember, too, and that's just what I always got to remind myself, God never needs a majority. All he needs is a faithful remnant. Faith isn't faith until it's all you got. Don't abandon your faith at the same time. Remember, always love is the final fight. We always do this caringly and in love. We always do it this way. But you've got to fight, but you do it in love. And then also, and finally with this, don't fight like a man. Fight like a believer. And there's a difference. Think about when David goes against Goliath. And the people around David say, okay, all right, this doesn't look like a particularly good fight, but let's get you suited up anyway. Remember? They're going to put all this armor on him, and they got a shield, and they got a sword and everything, and they put it, and it's all too big for him, and it just pulls him down and everything. That's how a man fights. Put the armor on like that guy does, and put the shield up. And David goes, you know what? This just isn't working for me here. He throws it all off, and he picks up 3 stones, and he goes, you've insulted Goliath. You've insulted the living God. He fights like a believer. And God had taught him how to fight when he wrestled with a lion and with a bear, hand to hand. And he said, I've learned how to fight as a believer. And he throws the stone and then kills Goliath with his own sword. Don't fight like a man. Fight like a believer. I was in Texas a while back visiting my youngest daughter that's in Austin, working there, and I was going back to her apartment after getting a cup of coffee in the morning, and we've got 5 children and soon to have 9 grandchildren, and my favorite title is Grandpa. I love that title, and I love that work. I'm walking back to her apartment, and there was a kind of a typical Texas Midwestern storm was brewing. You know how the storm clouds are just rolling through, and they're angry, you know, and they're just in the backdrop, and you're looking at that, and you're going, this doesn't look good. But I'd stopped. I felt I needed to stop, and I saw a bird sitting on a light pole, and the light pole was coming on midday because it was so dark with the storm. And that bird was sitting over there just singing his heart out. And I looked at it and thought, you know, that's exactly what God's telling us to do. There's a big storm out here. This is a big rolling storm. And the tendency is to just kind of go find a place to hide from the storm, but he doesn't allow us to do that. We're supposed to be out there in it, but we're not supposed to be out there and angry. We're supposed to be out there singing. We're supposed to be out there singing that we know the answer to this fight. And that's why we're in it. And that's why we're going to stay in it. And that's how we will win this fight as well. The storm clouds are gathering. And as a man that was raised on a farm, you got a big harvest out there and you got storm clouds brewing. You don't go fix and fence, and you don't go into the house. You run that combine as hard as you can and get every bit of crop in you can. While this storm is out there and we're still in the saddle, folks, we've got to be about this fight. We have got to be. This is a critical season. This is a critical season, and you're critical fighters in it. Don't let up. Don't give up. Don't go just fix and fence. Ride hard, because this is the time that we've just got to get these things done. And I just plead with you, folks. You're going to get lots of things thrown at you and hurled at you, but we've got to be in this fight, and we have to win this fight. And the world depends on us with this. It's not just about America. You lose ground here on religious freedom, as I said, it impacts the whole world. Thank you. I love you guys. You guys are great. God bless you all.